How's it going, everyone? It's Avi from Weather SpongeBob. Today is January 8th, 2022. As today, we're going to focus on the next major ice storm that will impact the Northeast as soon as tomorrow, and we'll keep track of what type of impacts you'll experience in the Northeast for tomorrow and how to take precaution, and we'll look at other potential winter storms that may occur in the United States in the near future. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. So let's begin by taking a look at the current radar for the lower 48, and of course the main feature we'll be focusing on is this trough that's going to moving through the Mississippi River Valley and extending through the Ohio River Valley at this point, and we're seeing a decent amount of thunderstorm activity along this frontal boundary. However, none of these thunder showers are considered anywhere close to severe, as there just isn't enough lift in the atmosphere to create an extreme severe weather threat. So as a result, the thunderstorms aren't really severe, but you are experiencing heavy rain and potentially some thunder associated with some of these thunder showers. So watch out if you're in one of these areas, because I wouldn't rule out the chance that maybe you could experience flash flooding embedded in one of these thunderstorms. So make sure to keep in watch of that. But if we were to take a look just north of these thunder showers, you see that there's a decent amount of mixing going on right around Indiana, as well as Illinois and Ohio. But you see that it isn't a very large area of mixed precipitation. And when it comes to precipitation mix, I'm more specifically referring to like a wintry mix, which is pretty much the combination of sleet, freezing rain, but it could also be just sleet that's falling right around those areas, or freezing rain, which is the most dangerous in this case, and it will be over the next 24 hours as this moves further eastward. And you see that while there isn't a large area, that's expected to quickly change if we were to move within the next 12 hours. So if I were to show you guys the GFS model at this point, this is how the GFS model looks as of the 18Z run, and this is a pretty accurate representation of where we are at when it comes to the area of precipitation and its location. However, if we were to continue to move forward and even more forward, you see that the rain significantly increases right around the Ohio River Valley and further northward, and while the mixture of precipitation will eventually change over all into rain throughout the Ohio River Valley, just north of the Ohio River Valley, including Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois, it's going to be a different story if we take a look further eastward, because since this low pressure that just brought heavy snow throughout the Northeast is bringing at least a strong enough northeasterly flow, which is creating a cooler environment throughout the Northeast, we're going to see some freezing rain and potentially some snow in the extreme northern portions of the Northeast for a major ice storm threat to occur throughout the Northeast. And you guys need to pay close attention to this, because a major ice storm is something you don't want to underestimate. In reality, only 1/10 of an inch of ice accumulation could cause major problems on the road. So you need to pay close attention to that. And a lot of times, the freezing rain you see out on the roadways, it's very difficult to see. So even though you might not be able to see the ice on the roads, you definitely don't want to think that the roads are completely fine, because that's certainly not the case. A lot of times, the ice accumulation on the surface is very discreet and difficult to notice, and so you definitely don't want to underestimate this ice storm, especially when you're on the roads. Don't think that you could go the same speed you usually go on the roads during an ice storm, because that's definitely not the case in this scenario, as ice has more friction than snow, so it takes a lot less ice accumulation to cause major problems on the roadways. So you need to pay close attention to that throughout the Northeast. You see that we begin to see the freezing rain throughout Pennsylvania and upstate New York by right around the Sunday morning time frame, and we could even see the ice approach New York City and potentially Philadelphia. However, it seems like by the time these rain showers eventually reach the East Coast, the temperature will warm up to a point that's warm enough to where freezing rain won't occur, as it'll just be plain rain throughout the extreme eastern portions of the Northeast as a result of daytime heating. Of course, because as the sun comes out, we get more shortwave radiation, and that will heat up the surface and the air temperature enough to a point where we won't see an extremely major ice threat for the extreme eastern portion of the East Coast. But again, you still have that possibility of receiving maybe a little bit of ice accumulation around New York City and Philadelphia. And who knows, if the temperature does not rise high enough or quick enough to the point where the precipitation changed over to all rain, this ice threat could be more significant for you guys along the along the extreme eastern portions of the Northeast, such as New York City and Philadelphia. So while the chance, I'd say, is still minimal for those cities, you definitely still want to be very aware and pay close attention to the forecast, because it could potentially be major for you guys if the temperatures don't rise as anticipated, which is certainly a possibility because weather is very difficult to forecast, especially the very specifics of weather when it comes to temperature, because you don't know how fast that temperature will rise by Sunday afternoon. So it's definitely important to be aware of this for tomorrow throughout the Northeast. But in terms of the ice accumulation in Philadelphia and upstate New York, this is the area where the ice threat should be the largest. I'd say extending from central Pennsylvania throughout central upstate New York. This is where I'd say the ice storm will be major. So expect very slick roadways, expect very bad road conditions, and potentially power outages could be a problem too, because of course as the ice accumulates on tree branches, especially the smaller and more vulnerable, fragile tree branches, they're more prone to all that weight from the ice accumulation is prone to pretty much bring down those branches, and of course some of those branches could land on a power line, which could knock out power throughout many areas throughout Pennsylvania and upstate New York. So you need to pay close attention to this, and to really show you guys why there will be an ice threat. So pretty much if I were to show you how the temperatures are going to be throughout different levels of the atmosphere during this ice event, so let me show you guys real quick. If I were to show you guys the temperature in different levels of the atmosphere, you see that only maybe a few feet higher in elevation in the atmosphere, you see the temperature quickly changes from temperature on the surface around 27 to something that's well above freezing, probably closer to 40 at this point. While it is natural for the atmosphere to really rise in temperature right around if you go just a little bit higher in the atmosphere before it drastically drops, it's not natural that we see a temperature spike this large when it comes to going in the higher elevations of the atmosphere. And that's what's going to cause a freezing rain threat, because the precipitation that's going to fall in the upper levels of the atmosphere will be in the form of snow, but since the temperatures will rise above freezing in the mid levels of the atmosphere, that snow will eventually melt, but at the surface the temperature is going to be below freezing, which means that the melted snow will accumulate on the surface, and that the freezing temperatures will freeze that water on the surface or that rain on the surface, and that's what causes freezing rain. So it's suddenly something we need to keep in mind, that there's going to be a big temperature spike in the mid levels of the atmosphere for a major freezing rain threat to occur right around Pennsylvania and New York. So you guys need to pay close attention to this, because I think this could be dangerous. And the European model for the most part agrees with the same thing. I'd say the forecast at this point is pretty certain that we're going to see a major ice threat throughout Pennsylvania and upstate New York. So definitely keep a close eye on that throughout the Northeast, pretty much, as we could see power outages, like I said, and very dangerous road conditions, especially right around upstate New York and Pennsylvania. So make sure to pay close attention to that over the next 24 hours. Pretty much, it's going to be very important to keep that in mind in the Northeast, because I think it could be extremely dangerous if you don't take the right precaution. So now let me show you guys what exactly causes freezing rain. Like I said, the clouds pretty much condensed into the form of snowfall, and that snowfall will eventually change over to rain as a result of an infiltration of warm air in the mid levels of the atmosphere. But along the surface, the temperatures are hovering right around freezing, and the the amount of time and the area where the freezing temperatures it's so small to a point where that rain can't really freeze as it's falling down. So instead it just freezes on the surface. It's a little different with sleet, where there's a little bit less of a warm air infiltration and a little bit more cold air in the lower levels of the atmosphere for the rain to change over the sleet and pretty much freeze in the air rather than on the surface. So there's a pretty big difference between the two, but in terms of the concept, it's pretty much the same thing. We see a warm air infiltration causing either sleet or freezing rain. Of course, when it's all warm air in all levels of the atmosphere, it will fall in the form of rain. And if there isn't any warm air infiltration, it will fall in the form of snow, which doesn't seem likely at this time, as it seems like there's going to be too much warm air in the mid levels of the atmosphere that this will mostly be freezing rain and sleet threat for most of the Northeast in this case. So if I were to show you guys the total ice accumulation forecast based pretty much from the National Weather Service, and you see that throughout central Pennsylvania, and I'd say central to southern upstate New York, you guys are expected to receive over 1/10 of an inch of ice, between 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch of ice throughout central Pennsylvania and southern upstate New York. And this is considered major. 1/10 of an ice is something that will definitely cause dangerous road conditions and could cause power outages. And so you need to prepare throughout upstate New York and central Pennsylvania. And in terms of the snowfall, the ice accumulation outside of that, you see that we're expecting 0.5 to 0.10 tenths of an inch of ice just outside of that, which isn't as significant, but still something you want to pay close attention to throughout the Northeast. And just outside that, you might receive less than 0.05 of an inch of ice just outside of that, which won't really consider be major, but you still need to be aware of this even in areas further eastward, because there's that possibility that if that temperature doesn't rise enough, we could see a significant ice storm threat throughout the extreme eastern portion of Northeast. So make sure to be aware of that. And here's my forecast of where you should expect the most ice pretty much. So of course, in the areas where you're expecting around 0.10 of an inch of ice to 0.25, I'd consider it a major ice threat, a moderate ice threat just outside of that, and a minimal ice threat just outside of that. This includes New York City and Philadelphia, where I'm expecting a minimal ice threat at this time. But again, you're very close to the moderate to maybe major ice threat, depending on how fast that temperature rises. That's going to be something you guys need to pay close attention to really determine how much ice you will receive and how significant this storm will be. So make sure to keep that in mind throughout the East Coast, as this could be very significant. So if I were to show you guys what else might go on over next week when it comes to winter weather. So if I were to continue to move forward, you see that after this trough moves through, we're going to see quite a significant jet stream dip. While for the most part, it's going to be quite quiet throughout the United States when it comes to any sort of precipitation, it's going to be a completely different story when we talk about temperatures, because you see a lot of the eastern half of the United States is experiencing a major jet stream dip, which means that temperatures will fall significantly below average in many areas over, I'd say it'll begin right around the Monday timeframe. And in my area in northern New Jersey, the high might not even reach the 20s, as my current forecast is expecting right around the high to be 17 degrees, which is significantly cold. That's around 20 degrees below average for a lot of the Northeast. And if I were to show you guys the forecasted temperature anomaly when it comes to this jet stream dip, so if I were to show you that right now, this is the let me actually show you guys the This is 850 millibars. I want to show you guys the 2 meter temperature anomaly, because it's of course a better representation of what the air temperature is on the ground rather than in the higher levels of the atmosphere. You see that if we were to move forward, we're going to see a little bit of warm up, but then you see the temperatures quickly cool down to significant margins here, where we're seeing temperatures 20 degrees below average at times. We're going to see a little bit of a warm along the west coast and the Midwest, so that should be good news for those who do enjoy the warmer weather for the Midwest. But for the Northeast, it's going to be a completely different story, and the northern Midwest, where you're going to see temperatures in excess of 20 to 30 degrees below average. So make sure to pay close attention to that throughout the United States for this week. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it for this video. I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. And I hope you guys have a good day.